Reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley were also pardoned of tax evasion and fraud, totaling over $30 million.
President Trump set to pardon a couple who starred in a reality TV show before being jailed in a multi-million-dollar fraud and tax evasion case.
You know who called their child, their daughter Savannah, with the news. Take a look.
Your parents are going to be free and clean, and I hope we can do it by tomorrow.
Yes, you heard that right. The former reality TV stars might be walking free after serving just a fraction of their sentence.
They're heading home. Big reaction today to the news that President Trump was pardoning Todd and Julie Chrisley, the stars of the reality show Chrisley Knows Best.
Congratulate your parents.
Congratulations, Savannah.
And Alice had a lot to do with this. And just congratulate your parents. And I hear they're terrific people. This should not have happened. So, and you
Thank
just
you so
take
much.
care. Boy, they have good children. You're no longer children, but I'll say it anyway. They have good children.
Well, I have shed so many tears. The president called me personally as I was walking into Sam's Club and notified me that he was signing pardon paperwork for both of my parents. So both my parents are coming home tonight or tomorrow, and I still don't believe it's real. I'm freaking out.
From red carpets to prison cells to Trump's desk, this is the shocking, emotional, and controversial story of the Chrisleys' fall and their possible return. Back in 2014, a slick Southern gentleman and his picture-perfect family burst onto American screens and changed reality TV forever. Chrisley Knows Best wasn't just a show, it was a spectacle. It was opulence mixed with outrageousness, a carefully crafted window into a world most Americans had never seen. At the center of it all was Todd Chrisley, a self-made millionaire, or so it seemed. Draped in designer labels, with razor-sharp wit and no filter, Todd was everything a reality TV producer could dream of. He was loud, opinionated, fiercely loyal to his family, and he had that Southern charm that made audiences either love him or love to hate him. He spoke his mind, and in doing so, he spoke to America. Then there was Julie Chrisley, Todd's wife and perfect counterpart. Soft-spoken but strong, nurturing yet steely. She was the stabilizing force in a household full of chaos. A cancer survivor, a mother of 5, a woman of faith, Julie quickly became the emotional core of the series. If Todd was the show's fire, Julie was its heart. Their children, Savannah, Chase, Grayson, and the rest, each became stars in their own right. They had the kind of flawed but relatable dynamic that made viewers feel like they were part of the family. From teenage tantrums to tearful heart-to-hearts, the Chrisleys gave America everything. And America tuned in religiously. The success was meteoric. Millions of viewers, primetime slots, spin-offs like Growing Up Chrisley, endorsement deals, magazine covers, podcast launches, brand sponsorships, appearances on talk shows. It was all golden. Todd and Julie weren't just making money, they were printing it. According to estimates at the time, their net worth soared into the tens of millions. They flaunted it all. Multi-million-dollar homes in Atlanta and Nashville, designer wardrobes, exotic vacations, private chefs. Even the smallest moments were curated like royalty. But while the public was mesmerized by the glitz and glam, behind the scenes, a different reality was unfolding. Insiders whispered that Todd's finances were more fragile than they appeared, that the empire was built not just on success, but on illusion. That fame was the smokescreen hiding years of financial mismanagement and risky decisions. Yet, none of that was public. Not yet. At its peak, Chrisley Knows Best was one of USA Network's top-rated shows. It became a symbol of aspirational American life, a Southern spin on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, but with a gospel twist. In interviews, Todd often spoke about faith and family, about rising from hardship and never backing down, about honesty, integrity, and doing what's right even when it's hard. But viewers didn't know they were watching a house of cards. Behind every lavish shopping spree and extravagant vacation was a debt collector calling. Behind every perfectly lit confessional was a mounting financial storm. Behind the reality was the real reality, and that truth was getting harder and more expensive to hide. The Chrisleys had built a brand around transparency, but ironically, they were hiding more than anyone could imagine. The camera loved them. America adored them. But behind closed doors, the countdown had begun. The image was pristine. The story was perfect. But perfection is fragile. And cracks were starting to form. Big ones. Because the higher you rise in the spotlight, the farther you fall when the lights go out. At first, it was just a whisper. A rumor here. A social media post there. Nothing major, at least not on the surface. Some said Todd owed a few thousand in back taxes. Others said it was nothing more than tabloid gossip. Fans scoffed at the headlines. Just haters, they said. Todd always has enemies. But in 2019, the whispers became a roar. The Internal Revenue Service, quiet, calculating, and thorough, launched a full-blown investigation. What they found would shock even the most loyal fans. The allegations were massive. Federal prosecutors accused Todd and Julie Chrisley of orchestrating a years-long bank fraud and tax evasion scheme. The numbers weren't just large, they were staggering. Millions of dollars in fake loans, dozens of forged financial documents, inflated bank statements, fabricated credit reports. Todd and Julie were living like royalty, but allegedly doing so on borrowed and in some cases non-existent money. The charges? Conspiracy to commit bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. The same couple that once smiled on red carpets and gave parenting advice on national TV was now staring down the barrel of a 30-count federal indictment. According to prosecutors, the Chrisleys didn't just cheat the system. They manipulated it with surgical precision. They allegedly used falsified documents to obtain millions in loans to fund their lavish lifestyle. Private schools, luxury cars, mansions, designer wardrobes. You name it, they bought it, while reportedly hiding income and failing to pay taxes. Todd, of course, denied it all. In an Instagram post, he pointed the finger at a former employee. An ex-business partner he claimed was trying to ruin him out of spite. Todd's version? The man had stolen from them, forged documents in their name, and when they fired him, he turned the feds against them. It was a compelling defense, but one the prosecutors didn't buy. By the time the charges went public, the damage to the Chrisleys' carefully curated image was undeniable. Sponsors pulled back. Networks hesitated. But fans, they were torn. Some believed in the couple's innocence. Others saw through the charm. As the trial loomed, media outlets had a field day. The story had it all: celebrity, scandal, betrayal, and greed. A Southern family torn apart not by fame, but by fraud. And still, Todd and Julie held their heads high. They walked into courtrooms dressed to the nines. Julie wore white. Todd wore confidence. They smiled for cameras. They quoted scripture. They insisted the truth would prevail. But truth, as it turns out, can be a brutal thing. With each court filing, each witness testimony, each piece of evidence, the cracks in the Chrisleys' crown widened. The money trail was damning. Email surfaced showing internal conversations about how to hide assets. Bank records painted a picture of extravagant spending paired with underreported income. The same homes shown on TV as symbols of their success were now exhibits in a federal trial. And for Todd and Julie, there was nowhere left to run. By the end of that year, the fairy tale had turned into a full-blown legal nightmare. The Chrisleys, once adored for their glitz and grit, were now facing the very real possibility of years, decades behind bars. But what fans didn't know, this was only the beginning, because while the charges were shocking, the verdict would be devastating. The Chrisleys' courtroom drama was like something out of a primetime thriller. By mid-2022, the trial was in full swing, and America was glued to every headline. What had started as whispers and rumors had evolved into one of the most sensational celebrity trials of the decade. Every day, new details emerged. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture. The Chrisleys weren't just careless with money. They were deliberate, calculated. They said Todd and Julie didn't just want wealth. They wanted the appearance of success at any cost. Testimony after testimony rocked the courtroom. Forensic accountants, former employees, even banks. They traced the fraud scheme step by step. How loans were allegedly secured using fake financial statements, how income was underreported, and how corporate accounts were manipulated to hide the truth. Emails, bank records, voicemails, nothing was off limits. The prosecution had built a fortress of evidence. And with every revelation, the once sparkling Chrisley brand faded further into scandal. But Todd wasn't going down without a fight. He took the stand, calm, collected, defiant. He told the jury they were being misled, that this wasn't fraud, it was a vendetta, that he and Julie were victims of betrayal by someone they had once trusted like family, and that no matter what the evidence seemed to say, their intentions were never criminal. Julie sat beside him, composed but clearly emotional. Friends described her as devastated but faithful. She clung to hope, quoting Bible verses and praying publicly for vindication. But the courtroom is a place of facts, not faith. And then came the verdict. Guilty on all major counts. Bank fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy. The jury didn't just believe the Chrisleys were guilty. They believed they'd orchestrated a years-long scheme to defraud banks and the federal government. The reaction was swift and polarizing. Some fans wept, others raged. But for many, the illusion had shattered. In November 2022, the sentence came down like a gavel of thunder. Todd Chrisley, 12 years in federal prison. Julie Chrisley, 7 years in federal prison. The courtroom was silent. Todd didn't cry. Julie didn't scream. They simply held hands, tight, and listened as the judge spelled out the end of their empire. The judge was blunt. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was a pattern of deception, executed knowingly, repeatedly, and arrogantly. The Chrisleys had manipulated millions, and then they'd lied about it. And now they would pay. Both were ordered to serve their sentences in separate federal prisons. Their children, shocked and heartbroken, released emotional statements, pleading for public understanding. Savannah, now thrust into the role of caregiver for her younger siblings, said she was angry, sad, and confused. And just like that, reality royalty became inmates. Gone were the mansions, the designer clothes, the fame, the lights. In their place, prison bars, jumpsuits, silence. But if you thought the story ended there, you were wrong. Because in early 2025, just as the Chrisleys were settling into their new reality, a shocking name resurfaced. Donald J. Trump. And with him, a twist no one saw coming. It started with a whisper on political Twitter, then a blog post, then, suddenly, headlines. Trump urging release of reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley. The nation blinked. Was it true? Why would the 45th president of the United States, once again making waves in the 2024 campaign trail, care about two imprisoned reality stars? But this wasn't tabloid fantasy. Within days, Trump himself confirmed the rumors. Standing before a packed crowd in Georgia, flanked by red hats and campaign banners, he said it with that signature bravado. They were wronged. Bigly. It's a disgrace what happened to the Chrisleys. And yes, I'm looking into it. I believe they deserve freedom. It's a witch hunt, just like they tried with me. Gasps. Cheers. Headlines exploded. Todd and Julie Chrisley, victims of a witch hunt? Political commentators were divided. Critics slammed the move as a publicity stunt, a desperate attempt to win back suburban voters or distract from mounting legal issues of his own. But Trump supporters applauded the gesture. They saw the Chrisleys not just as reality TV stars, but as symbols of a flawed justice system. And there was strategy. The Chrisleys had a massive fan base, many of them evangelical, conservative, family-oriented. In March 2025, a surprising legal development sent shockwaves through the nation. A judicial panel agreed to review the Chrisley sentencing. Not the verdict, not the conviction, but the length of the sentence. Was 12 and 7 years too harsh? Suddenly, prison doors didn't feel so permanent. Julie's attorneys filed for compassionate release, citing her recent health issues and model behavior in prison. Todd's team leaned into the angle that the sentence was disproportionate, especially given nonviolent charges. The media frenzy was electric. Paparazzi camped outside courthouse steps. TikTok was flooded with theories, countdowns, and conspiracy threads. Hashtag Free the Chrisleys trended across platforms. Trump himself doubled down on Truth Social, posting, "Todd and Julie innocent. Get them home to their family." Even celebrities joined the conversation. Some defended the couple. Others condemned the move. But one thing was clear. The Chrisleys were no longer just convicts. They were political chess pieces. And America? America was watching. In April 2025, the decision came down. Julie Chrisley, sentence reduced to time served. Immediate release. Todd Chrisley, sentence reduced to 4 years. Eligible for early release in 2026. Julie walked out of prison into a sea of flashing cameras, tears streaming down her face. She hugged her children like she'd been gone a lifetime. Todd, still behind bars, released a statement. "Thank you to everyone who believed in us, especially President Trump. Justice is still possible in America." Whether you cheered or cringed, one thing was undeniable. Trump had done what no one else could. He brought the Chrisleys back into the spotlight, not as fallen stars, but as symbols in a larger, stranger, more divided American story. But this wasn't the end, because what came next would change everything. Julie Chrisley's first steps out of the federal facility were met with a silence so deafening. You could hear her breath tremble. Then, the click, click, click of 1,000 cameras. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks as she clutched her Bible, eyes swollen with tears, and walked straight into the arms of her daughter Savannah. The world watched. Todd remained behind bars. But Julie was now the most talked about woman in America. Within 24 hours, she was trending across every social platform. Hashtags like #JulieReturns, #TrumpSaveJulie, and even #ChrsleyComeback flooded timelines. Interview requests poured in. Networks offered 7-figure deals for a tell-all. But Julie stayed silent for days, and then the podcast dropped. Savannah, already running her own media company, recorded an emergency episode of her show. It was raw, unedited. A 2-hour emotional roller coaster titled, My Mama's Home. The truth they don't want you to hear. In it, Julie spoke, shaky, soft-spoken, but fierce. I was used, played, betrayed by people I trusted. I take responsibility, yes, but I wasn't the mastermind. And I paid with my freedom. Listeners were gripped. She spoke of the cold nights in prison, the cancer scare she'd kept hidden, the other inmates who became sisters, the letters Todd wrote her every week, and the crushing moment she thought she'd die behind bars. Every night, I'd close my eyes and pray that my kids wouldn't forget the sound of my voice. The episode went viral, 20 million downloads in 48 hours. Meanwhile, Todd's legal team worked around the clock. Trump's continued public backing turned the case into a spectacle. Pressure mounted. A congressional committee, even if unofficial, demanded an inquiry into selective sentencing and celebrity bias. For the Chrisleys, this was more than a second chance. It was a shot at redemption, or relapse. Then came the bombshell leak. A former DOJ staffer dropped documents to a major media outlet. Emails, internal memos, evidence that Todd and Julie's case may have been influenced by political enemies. That someone, somewhere, wanted them silenced. The public went nuclear. Conspiracy theories flourished. Was it because of their support for Trump? Did they know something about a bigger scandal? Was their conviction a warning? Amidst the frenzy, Julie made a quiet move. She visited Todd. The footage, leaked by a prison staffer, showed Julie walking in, shoulders square, clutching a framed photo of their wedding day. Todd stood up slowly, gaunt, pale, but when he saw her, he smiled. They embraced. Silent tears fell. Across America, households who once laughed at their show now watched in stunned silence. And then one more twist. Netflix, a limited series, already in production. The Chrisley Case, Fame, Fraud, and Freedom, starring award-winning actors as the couple, inspired by real events, with a shocking post-credits twist hinting that the true mastermind behind the fraud may never have been caught. Julie refused to comment. Todd remained in prison, but his lawyers hinted they might sue the federal government. Trump? He called the whole ordeal a disgrace and promised, if reelected, he would wipe their record clean. But for the Chrisleys, the scars were permanent. A family torn apart, reunited, partially, a legacy stained, a name now spoken with both reverence and ridicule. They had gone from reality royalty to prison inmates, and now they stood on the edge of something new. Redemption? Revenge? Or maybe just reality. Because in America, the truth isn't stranger than fiction. It is the fiction. And the Chrisleys? They're the proof. It was a gray Tuesday morning when everything changed again. Todd Chrisley's legal team, bolstered by new evidence from the DOJ leak, filed an emergency appeal. The claim? Government misconduct, judicial bias, and the suppression of critical evidence that could have changed the verdict. Social media lit up like wildfire. Free Todd became a national chant. Protesters gathered outside the prison. Journalists, influencers, and even celebrities chimed in. America was now split, Team Justice versus Team Chrisley. And at the center of it all, Donald Trump. In an explosive rally speech, Trump doubled down. They were railroaded. It was a political hit job. And I promise you, Todd Chrisley will walk free under my administration. We're not just talking about injustice, we're talking about a weaponized system. The media had a field day. For some, it was a clear abuse of political influence. For others, it was about finally calling out a broken legal system. Every talk show, every news segment, every tweet seemed to revolve around one question. Did the Chrisleys deserve prison? Or did they just get caught in the crossfire of something bigger? Then came the televised appeal hearing. It was a spectacle. Cameras lined the courtroom steps. Protesters and supporters clashed. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Julie sat in the front row, a single tear tracing her cheek. Savannah held her hand. Chase, their son, nodded solemnly. Everyone was there. Everyone felt it. Todd entered, dressed in a tailored prison-issued suit. Still composed. Still Todd. And when the judge finally spoke, it was like time stood still. Given the newly presented evidence and the clear indication of prosecutorial misconduct, this court finds it necessary to revisit the original sentencing. A gasp. Effective immediately, Mr. Todd Chrisley is to be released pending further investigation. The courtroom erupted. Cheers, cries, shouts of disbelief. The Chrisleys collapsed into a family hug. Reporters sprinted outside to break the news first. America was watching history. And within hours, Todd stepped into the sunlight. Free. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something else. The Chrisleys, now completely released, became media gold. Offers flooded in: books, interviews, documentaries. But this time they were careful, controlled, purposeful. They launched a foundation, the Chrisley Redemption Project, aimed at prison reform, wrongful convictions, and faith-based healing. Julie started a women's support group. Todd, surprisingly, began speaking at youth correctional facilities, using his story as a warning and a light. And then the big news, a revival of Chrisley Knows Best, but with a twist. It wasn't just about wealth anymore. It was about resilience, forgiveness, family. The first episode opened with Todd and Julie sitting in a small, modest living room. No mansion, no glam, just them. We lost everything, Todd said. And maybe that's what saved us. Viewership skyrocketed, but not everyone cheered. Former prosecutors demanded accountability. Victims of real financial crimes questioned the Chrisleys' influence. Activists accused the justice system of favoring the rich and famous. The debate continued, fiery as ever. Still, one thing was undeniable. The Chrisleys had rewritten their story, from reality stars to inmates to cultural icons of redemption. And as America watched them walk the fine line between fame and failure, one truth remained. In this country, your story isn't written by where you start, but by how you survive the fall. The Chrisleys did more than survive. They rose, scarred, changed, but somehow still standing. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes them unforgettable. Hopeful piano music swells, soft light fading into a slow montage of Chrisley family photos, courtroom footage, and scenes from their show Revival. From fame to prison to presidential intervention, Todd and Julie Chrisley's story is more than a fall from grace. It's a reflection of our obsession with celebrity, redemption, and the blurred lines of justice. They lost it all. Their empire, their name, their freedom, but maybe what they found was even more powerful. But now we turn the question to you. Do you believe they deserve a second chance? Comment your thoughts below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more truth behind the fame.